Man, it really feels like there's never a quiet day if you're a Denver Broncos fan. Just when it seems like this roster is finally starting to come together, new storylines keep popping up that could have a real impact on this team's future. And today is one of those days, because we've actually got two big Broncos stories to break down. And both of them could end up changing the conversation heading into the season. The first one involves a player whose future with the Broncos suddenly doesn't look nearly as secure as it did not long ago. There's growing speculation around the league that another AFC contender could be keeping a very close eye on him. And if things unfold the right way, Denver might have a difficult decision to make. Then, right after that, we'll talk about another fascinating report involving a familiar face connected to Sean Payton. A veteran who has done just about everything on a football field could be on Denver's radar. And if this actually happens, it would add another really interesting wrinkle to training camp. So we've got a potential roster shakeup. We've got rumors. We've got Sean Payton making headlines again. And there's a lot to unpack today. Before we jump into everything, if you're a real Broncos fan, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and join us here. My name is Andrew. This channel is still brand new, and we're chasing our first 1,000 subscribers. So if you believe in where this Broncos team is headed and want to be here from the very beginning, we'd love to have you with us. Alright, let's start with the first story, because this is one that could quietly become one of the more interesting situations to watch as we move through training camp. According to growing league speculation, the Buffalo Bills have been identified as a potential landing spot for Denver Broncos wide receiver Marvin Mims Jr. Now, it's important to point out that no formal trade talks have been reported, and there is no indication that the Broncos are actively shopping Mims. But around the league, executives and analysts continue to view him as one of the more intriguing players who could become available depending on how Denver's roster develops. The timing of these rumors isn't random. After the Broncos made several significant moves to reshape their offense, Marvin Mims Jr.'s role isn't as clear as it once was. One of the biggest reasons is the addition of Jalen Waddle, who immediately changes the makeup of Denver's receiving corps and creates much more competition for targets. Mims is entering the final year of his rookie contract, which also makes this situation worth watching. He's only 24 years old. He's still on an affordable rookie-scale deal with a cap hit of roughly $6 million. That makes him exactly the type of player other NFL teams love to monitor. If a team believes he simply needs a bigger opportunity, Denver could receive valuable draft compensation instead of risking losing him for nothing later. The report suggests that a mid-round draft pick could be enough to start conversations if the Broncos ever decided moving him made sense. Again, that's not being reported as an active negotiation, but it's the type of value many around the league believe Mims could command. For Buffalo, the fit is easy to understand. The Bills are still looking to give Josh Allen another explosive weapon. Even as Allen enters his 9th NFL season, Buffalo continues trying to surround its franchise quarterback with as much speed and playmaking ability as possible, without creating long-term salary cap problems. Allen recently joked about getting older, saying, "I'm not too sure on the science of the athletic peak of a male, but I think it's slightly beyond 30. And then hopefully the dad strength kicks in, right?" That quote obviously shows where Allen's mindset is, but from Buffalo's perspective, adding another young receiver like Marvin Mims Jr. would help maximize their championship window. Mims himself also admitted earlier this offseason that his current situation hasn't always been easy. He said, "Sometimes I'm not in the most fortunate situations. Sometimes I am a little irritated with my situation. But at the end of the day, I'm blessed to be where I am. With this possibly being my last year, I'm just going to enjoy it to the fullest." That comment immediately caught people's attention because it sounded like a player who understands his future isn't guaranteed. Then there's what Pro Football Focus recently wrote about him. The outlet identified Marvin Mims Jr. as one of the players worth monitoring on the trade market after Denver's offseason additions, saying he is a talented playmaker who's flashed at times and could provide explosiveness for another team because of how crowded the Broncos' receiving room has become. From Denver's perspective, though, this isn't necessarily a simple decision. Even with more competition at wide receiver, Marvin Mims Jr. is still one of the most explosive athletes on the roster. His speed can completely change a game, and we've all seen flashes where it felt like he was just one opportunity away from becoming a much bigger part of this offense. On top of that, rookie contracts are incredibly valuable. Keeping a talented young receiver on an inexpensive deal gives the Broncos flexibility. while they're continuing to build around Bo Nix. So unless another team makes an offer that's simply too good to ignore, there's definitely an argument for keeping Mims and seeing what he can do in this offense over a full season. Still, this is absolutely a storyline worth watching throughout training camp, because if Denver's depth chart continues to evolve, the rumors probably aren't going away anytime soon. Now, let's move to the second story. This one is fascinating because it brings together one of the NFL's most unique players, with someone who knows him better than almost anyone else. According to Adam LaRose, Sean Payton confirmed during an interview with NFL Network's Steve Wyche and Cynthia Freeland that the Denver Broncos will consider signing Taysom Hill. Hill recently confirmed that he will not return to the New Orleans Saints in 2026. He also made it clear that he has not officially retired from football. Honestly, if there's one place where this move would make perfect sense, it's Denver. Sean Payton coached Taysom Hill in New Orleans from 2017 through 2021. During those seasons, Hill became one of the most versatile players in the NFL. He lined up at quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver, and on special teams, becoming the ultimate Swiss Army knife for Payton's offense. If the Broncos decide to sign him, the expectation is that Hill would spend the rest of training camp competing primarily for a tight end role. Of course, this isn't about replacing Bo Nix. Nix is firmly established as Denver's starting quarterback, and the Broncos also have plenty of running backs already competing for touches. Instead, this would be about adding another experienced offensive weapon who already understands Sean Payton's system. The tight end room already includes Evan Engram, who signed with Denver in free agency before the 2025 season. While Engram didn't have the debut season many fans hoped for, Sean Payton said earlier this year that he still views him as an important part of the offense moving forward. The Broncos also have Adam Troutman, Lucas Kroll, and rookie Justin Jolie, a fifth-round draft pick, competing for roles at tight end. Then you add Taysom Hill into that mix, and suddenly competition becomes even more interesting. Hill turns 36 years old later this month, so nobody expects him to play every snap. But what he still brings is experience, leadership, versatility, and perhaps most importantly, complete familiarity with Sean Payton's offense. Financially, this would be an easy move. The Broncos currently have more than $37 million in available salary cap space. That means they could easily afford a low-cost one-year contract without affecting any other roster plans for the remainder of the offseason. Right now, nothing is finalized. Hill is still evaluating his options, and Sean Payton simply confirmed that Denver would consider bringing him in. But if that reunion actually happens, Taysom Hill would become yet another former Saints player following Sean Payton to the Mile High City. It would also add another experienced chess piece to an offense that's already trying to take another step forward this season. When you step back and look at both of today's stories together, one thing becomes pretty clear. The Broncos are still shaping this roster, and every decision from this point forward matters. On one hand, you've got Marvin Mims Jr. generating legitimate interest around the league because of his talent, his age, and his affordable contract. Even though there are no active trade talks at this point, it's obvious that NFL teams are paying attention to his situation. The Broncos now have to decide whether his explosiveness is more valuable on the field with Bo Nix, or if a future draft pick could help the organization even more in the long run. Then, on the other hand, you have the possibility of Sean Payton reuniting with Taysom Hill. It's not a blockbuster move, and nobody is saying Hill would suddenly become a full-time starter. But if there's one coach who knows exactly how to get the best out of him, it's Sean Payton. Bringing in a veteran who understands the system, can line up in multiple positions, and adds leadership to the locker room is the kind of move that could quietly pay off during a long NFL season. The biggest takeaway for me is that this front office clearly isn't standing still. Whether it's evaluating young talent like Marvin Mims Jr., or looking at experienced veterans like Taysom Hill, the Broncos continue searching for ways to improve every part of this football team. That's exactly what you want to see from an organization that's trying to build on last season and take another step toward becoming a real contender in the AFC. Now, will Marvin Mims Jr. still be wearing orange and blue when Week 1 arrives? Will Taysom Hill actually reunite with Sean Payton in Denver? Those are questions we don't have answers to yet. But one thing is certain. Training camp just became even more interesting, and every move from here on out is going to be worth watching.